Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I know we've covered a lot of different topics about volunteering abroad during coronavirus. We've talked with insurance agents about risks abroad and security specialists, um, travel specialists, accounting, and tax specialists for those dealing with PPP applications and getting forgiveness. And today, I wanted to talk about something a little bit different in terms of the data we're seeing that is coming out of different countries in terms of how coronavirus is being handled and managed. And while we're certainly watching all this and all of our programs locations, at least GlobalWare, we're doing this for a number of reasons. We're obviously communicating with all of our staff and coordinators that are abroad to understand both the special challenges that are unique to the countries and the communities they face. So for example, in South Africa, in the townships where people are living in homes made of cardboard and corrugated metal, so that social distancing, for example, looks very different than what it might in North America. So we're wanting to understand the special challenges they face, how we can help them address those specific issues, but we also are trying to learn from these communities and see what tools and mechanisms they are bringing to the table in order to manage the crisis. Well, of course, ultimately, we won't know how things have been handled successfully until the very end of this, whether that's a year or two, 5 down the road. We are starting to feel that by comparing techniques internationally, we can learn from each other, as we always have. Do other approaches that we are seeing outside of North America deserve consideration? So I wanted to look specifically at the case of Thailand. So I want to share my screen with you and see if we can look at a couple of things. So right now we're looking at a chart for Texas. This is where our headquarters are on GlobalWare, and you can see that we're really, in terms of deaths per day and infections, we're probably at a point where things are going to be increasing. We've been looking at domestically Puerto Rico, which is where we have one of our program locations. Looks like it's a place that the bell curve is starting to, we're on the decline of that, and we're actually looking at deaths starting to decline. And the projections are actually looking comparing to Texas, quite good. Of course, you never know what will happen, but that's what we're seeing at the moment. And then I'm also going to show you a few graphs. Here's one on our World in Data, which is a great site. You can plug in whatever countries you want to see. Right now, this is a chart showing where we have a lot of our programs right now. I think there are a few missing that weren't available to show, but they show, there's all sorts of ways you can compile and compare data on this site. I really love it. That, and there's a World in Meters, which is one of the others I was showing. This one, World in Meters, is great. So lots of great data. And then also this health data one. Anyway, so you can go and plug this data in for yourself. But so I was really intrigued looking at this graph. This one in particular is showing basically the number of confirmed cases over time and how rapidly they're increasing. And then this other one, which shows, because they're using a 7-day rolling average, it's a really great way of seeing whether or not they're bending the curve. And what I'm seeing on both of these is that Thailand in particular, look at how flat they've gotten their line here and what they've done here. It's interesting because Thailand is a country that has a large population. They're not particularly wealthy, so in terms of material resources, they don't have a lot. But they have been really successful. They have less than 60 deaths and something like approximately 3,000 cases. So really a remarkable job relative to a lot of Asia, and you know, a lot of data, depending on who you believe, shows that coronavirus was really at least first definitively identified in China. And a lot of Asian countries around Thailand have had worse issues with it. So it's worth, in my opinion, looking at what are they doing. So let me see if I can move the, I don't know that I can. So, I'm going to, a new share. Oh, stop share. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about were the various mechanisms that Thailand is using to lessen the effects and the impact of coronavirus, to see if there's anything we can learn from it. And again, knowing that they economically don't have a lot. So we can't say when their government is going to open borders, nor when planes will be flying certain routes into Thailand. So this doesn't mean that we're going to be going to Thailand first. But anyway, quite interestingly, their COVID-19 infection rates are really low. So let's look at the fact that in Thailand, most people are spending the majority of their lives out of doors. Even within Bangkok, for those of you who have been, you'll remember that most 99% of restaurants are open air. There are a few in the city, particularly in the fancier hotels, that are indoors and that are air conditioned. The vast majority are out of doors where there's an open breeze, where science and medicine are showing us that those kinds of conditions tend to disperse the virus and keep concentrated levels from congregating, and where the concentration levels can be more dangerous. It also means that their population is getting a healthy dose of vitamin D, since most of our vitamin D comes from exposure to the sun and not from vitamins and not from what we eat. And in North America, not only are many of us in air-conditioned environments, but like me, we're often wearing a lot of sunscreen, which can reduce the amount of vitamin D. And the reason that's important is that doctors and scientists tell us that vitamin D is an integral component for keeping our immune system strong. So in countries where they're getting exposure to sunlight and to breeze, there seems to be some idea that there's a correlation there between less impact from the virus. Anyway, everyone in Thailand is also generally, universally wearing face masks. It's culturally not considered something that's all that bizarre. In Asia, most of Asia, if someone has a cold, they will wear a mask, not to protect themselves, but protect others from getting whatever they have. So culturally, Asia has generally been a place where the wearing of masks was used to care for others. And here in North America and other places, we're seeing that some feel that it is perhaps an affront to our constitutional rights to ask people to wear a mask. They find it uncomfortable, they don't like how it looks, and they feel it impairs their freedom. But in Asia, that tends to be less of an issue, and statistics are bearing out that when everyone is wearing a mask, because this virus is transported through the molecules, the water droplets that come out of our mouth and nose, that a mask obviously does reduce it coming from you and from others. So if everyone's wearing it, it drastically reduces transmission, which will slow the spread. And right now we're seeing obviously that the less restrictions we have, the more cases we have. The more cases we have, the more deaths we have. We also know that we can't keep everything closed forever. So we're having to look at what can we do that will keep us safe so that we can open back up, because obviously it's better for our hearts, our health, and our businesses if everything is open. Anyway, in Thailand, anyone going into any sort of shop or store, their temperature is taken. It is not a completely reliable measure because, of course, you can take Tylenol or aspirin to reduce your fever, but it's better than nothing. and we can't take everybody's blood going in and out of a shopping mall. We just financially don't have the resources. Also, at the door of any shop or business, people are being required to use hand sanitizer. Shopping baskets are cleaned after every use. And I've seen this even here in Dallas. So some of these measures we are taking, and I suspect that it is helping keep everyone safer. In Thailand, most people use open air transport. They're on, it's not a politically correct term, but a lot of people will know them as tuk-tuks, mopeds, bicycles, mopeds, or private cars, and a lot less of the mass public transportation. So the open air transport goes back to one of the first items we covered, which was that access to the open air disperses the virus and reduces the chance of virus transmission. Thailand is also doing a great job of isolating the hotspots. So for example, Bangkok and Phuket are two areas where they're having that. And so they're having to do contract tracing, testing, treatment, all of that, but they're doing a very effective job of it. So they're testing as many people as they can, even higher doses, higher concentrations of testing per capita than the United States is. And I think that every country does need to be looked at differently. You know, in China, they don't expect the same freedoms, but Thailand is quite a free country. It's a constitutional monarchy. They do have a king, but you'll find that there's a lot of unregulated business, and people generally do what they want to do in life. But from their perspective and from the people we're hearing from, it seems that they just feel it's worth sacrificing certain personal freedoms in exchange for less cases of coronavirus, less deaths, less hospitalizations, and hence more freedom to safely open businesses and keep their economy going. The really fascinating thing about that is that those are non-pharmaceutical interventions. They're not expensive to do. We're not talking about the development of an expensive vaccine or injecting millions of people, although that is likely to come, I'm guessing, in the next decades, next couple of years, I hope. But anyway, so these are things that can be done cheaply on a mass scale that could make a difference. They don't have to be high tech. So I feel like this is a good thing. It's just a matter of whether culturally people are willing to embrace some of those temporary restrictions on behavior. And one of the issues we have, certainly in places like Texas, is that in places like Thailand, where they're not culturally conditioned to be used to having air-conditioned school, restaurants, and businesses, people are used to dealing with the heat, and they actually dress fairly modestly. You're not seeing people with spaghetti straps and short shorts, but they're just used to dealing with heat, and we're clearly not used to that. So for us, the idea of getting away from air conditioning, particularly as we go into the summer months, is something that would be very difficult for us to do. But there's some thought that having classrooms in Thailand, they've shut off all the air conditioning, open the windows, open the doors, have breezes coming through, which again disperses the concentration of the virus, and everyone's wearing masks. So I don't know what can be done for that. In Texas, I can't see in 108-degree weather that we're going to turn off the air conditioning. It's just, to me, an interesting thing to look at culturally. What can be done that isn't expensive, that can make a real impact? Anyway, we continue to look at all of our program locations, country by country. And again, certain places like Vietnam, Puerto Rico, Thailand, Cuba, are really seeming to handle things in a way where they're able to keep numbers manageable. In other countries, where they're starting to see an increase, certainly the United States has been struggling for the last few weeks. Mexico's on the rise in terms of dealing with coronavirus, and it's a constantly evolving situation. But anyway, we're looking to these countries and trying to stay on top of things so that we'll know not only where is it safe to go, but are they even going to be willing to let North Americans into their country if we seem to have less of a handle on how we're managing it, knowing that data is not always apples to apples. And we know that certainly when we're looking at overall case numbers, those are always underreported because we are not testing everyone. But we can look to countries like Thailand, like South Korea, Japan, where most scientists in North America really do respect and accept the figures that are coming out of those countries in particular. I know there's some debate about China. So I think there's something to learn here, and that maybe if we weren't resisting all of the measures, that maybe we would be able to get through this more safely and open more. Anyway, we'll continue to talk about all this. I just wanted to share our thoughts about Thailand for the moment. Have a good one.